So following on from the previous video, remember when you see this thing here, you don't actually shift the sine graph across by pi over 2. You actually shift it across by you would rewrite as this pi over 6. Because of this coefficient here, you're actually shifting it across by pi over 6, not pi over 2. So be careful when you see this. If you have a coefficient in front of the x, be careful. Okay. So we got to following on from the previous video, we got to this stage here. We were trying to solve this, and then this graph here would give us this thing here, would give us something like this, and then we're trying to solve when this thing equals negative a half. Negative a half. This is negative a half, so it would be all these solutions here. So our job is to find out all these solutions. So, hang on. So rather than solving this thing here, let's just imagine it as us solving sine something equals negative half. Now you should have these two pictures ingrained in your mind. So when it comes to trigonometry, a half is actually very common. A half is actually this thing here, a half. You might be asked something like this: solve blah 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 equals, let's say, root 3 over 2. Well, root 3 over 2 is actually quite common when it comes to trigonometry. It would be this thing here, root 3 over 2. Or you might be asked just to solve blah 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 equals something like 1 over root 2. Well, 1 over root 2 is actually common when it comes to trigonometry. 1 over root 2 is actually this thing here, 1, this is the 1 here, and root 2. Or you might be asked to find blah 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 equals, let's say, root 3 equals root 3. Well, root 3 is the same as root 3 over 1, which is this thing here, which is very common when it comes to trigonometry. So whenever you see these numbers when it comes to trigonometry, these numbers are actually quite common. So you should be able to picture these two diagrams in your mind straight away. So this thing here is an equilateral triangle of 2. This length here is 2. If you cut it in half, it would be 1 and blah blah blah. So you're trying to solve this thing equals this thing here. So remember, if you have a unit circle, radius 1, sine theta is the height and cos is the base. So as this dot moves around, the height is always sine theta. The cross is always cos theta. So when the dot is over here, the height is sine theta. The cross here is cos theta, and so on. So when you look at this, you're actually looking at you're actually saying, when would the height be negative a half? So when would the height be negative a half? So you can imagine this as being negative a half. So if you look at this, hang on, you're trying to solve this thing here. So look at this diagram, because a half, 1 and 2 is quite common. 1 and 2 is quite common when it comes to trigonometry. So we should be using this diagram. So if you look at this, negative a half. So we know we're going to have when you're trying to solve sine something equals negative a half. This sine thing here, think about the height. When would the height be negative a half? So think about the height. The height is like the up and down here. The height is this thing here. When would the height be a half? So look at this diagram. Translate this diagram into this unit, into this circle. So hang on. If you look at this, the hypotenuse is 2 here. So this is your hypotenuse here. This is your, this one here is negative 1, and then this angle here is 30 degrees, but we'll work in radians. So this angle here is pi over 6. So the point is that this triangle is right here. So if you look at this triangle here, you can actually say, don't forget this is sine here. So you can actually say sine pi over 6, and then you've got negative 1 over 2. So you can well, the point here is that you're trying to solve this thing here. Your first solution would be this. So all the way around here would be you getting this angle here, which will be pi, and then you've got to add it to this angle here, which will be pi over 6. Pi over 6. Now merge these two together. So visualize pi as pi over 1. Get the two denominators to be the same. So times top and bottom by 6. This will be 6 pi plus pi. That would be 7 pi over 6. So this is our first solution here. This is our first solution here. And then our second solution would be right here. So don't forget this. We got to look at this triangle here. This triangle here is this triangle here, where the hypotenuse here. This is the hypotenuse is 2. This is -1, and then this angle here is pi over 6. So this angle here is pi over 6. So to get this angle here all the way around here, we would get the whole circle here, which would be 2 pi, and then take away this angle here. Then take away this angle here. That will then give us this. So this thing here represents the angle from here all the way to here. So to solve this, we've got our first solution to be here. Our second solution would be here. So what that means is you're trying to solve sine something equals -1/2. So in your mind, picture this. Picture this sine thing here. Remember, we are looking at sine the bubble. We haven't squeezed it by a factor of 3. We haven't shifted across by anything. We are just simply looking at a simple sine graph. A simple sine graph is from 0 to 2 pi. We haven't squashed it. We haven't shifted across. We are just simply looking at the simple sine bubble. So this simple graph is really your simple sine graph. So hang on. So what that means is when will it be? So this is when will it be -1/2? It will be -1/2 right here and right here. So this thing here would be this point here, and then this thing here would be this point here. So hang on. So we are trying to solve this here, but rather than looking at this complicated thing, we would look at this thing here. So our first solution would be this thing plus multiples of 2 pi, and then the other one plus multiples of 2 pi, where m and n are integers. Okay, so what that means is this. Looking at this, it would be a simple graph like this, -1/2. So our first solution would be this thing here, and then our second one would be this thing here, and don't forget it would be multiples of 2 pi, and then you've got another multiple of 2 pi and so on, and then this point here is this thing here, and then another multiple of 2 pi, and then another multiple of 2 pi and so on. So that will then take us to here. Okay, and then now we can put that. Remember, this thing was 3 pi minus pi over 2. So this means 3 pi minus pi over 2 and so on. That will then take us to here. So our first set of solutions would be this thing here. Our second set of solutions would be this thing here. So now we are going to look at this first set of solutions. In the next video, we're going to look at this first set of solutions, okay? And then later on, we will look at this one here. But for the time being, in the next video, we're going to look at all the solutions for this one here. So that would be this, okay? I'll continue in the next video.